Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Suzanne Peterson, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Petty Officer Benjamin Hale. We warmly welcome the family of Private Joseph McBride, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Club Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of the ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the pool of the reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they'd done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance of the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record, which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read just one of those stories on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who've given their lives for us in war and in operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Joseph McBride. Joseph McBride was born on the 18th of October 1921 in the Melbourne suburb of Yarraville. He was one of 7 children born to Patrick McBride, an agricultural machinist, and his wife, Elizabeth. Joseph was educated locally and went on to Junior Technical College. In 1935, his older brother Patrick died after being hit by a car in Footscray, making Joseph the eldest child in the family. At the outbreak of the Second World War in 1939, he was working as a grocer's assistant near the suburb of Seddon. Joseph McBride enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force on the 17th of September 1941. He undertook his initial training near Bacchus Marsh before joining the ranks of the 2nd 29th Battalion at the end of December. Over the months that followed, Private McBride began a pattern of going absent without leave, often for days at a time, which cost him several fines, loss of pay, and short stints in detention. Between periods of training, imprisonment, and time in hospital, he did not embark for active service until late August 1942, having been transferred to the 2nd 23rd Battalion. Private McBride arrived in the Middle East in October 1942. He was taken on strength of his unit a month later, following a successful but costly campaign at El Alamein. After 3 months in the Middle East, McBride returned to Australia as Australian units began preparing to face Japanese troops attacking in the Pacific. In March, he was again apprehended for being absent without leave. On this occasion, McBride faced a court-martial for sentencing. Asked to address the court, he said, "I am 19 years of age. My mother gets very worried at me being away from home, and she has just lost a son older than me, and now I am the eldest in the family. I hate to be away from home for any amount of time without letting her know how I am." Private McBride was later found guilty and was sentenced to 6 months detention. He served just 4 months before being released to join the fighting in New Guinea. He rejoined the 2nd 23rd Battalion in late October, following its involvement in the Battle of Finchhaven. McBride's first major battle took place in November, when Australian units attacked Japanese positions near Saddleburg on the Huon Peninsula. The enemy occupied the high ground, from where McBride and his comrades came under fire from machine guns, mortars, and grenades, which significantly slowed their advance. On the 24th of November, the 2nd 23rd made a diversionary attack to allow patrols further north to break through enemy lines. As his unit advanced, Private McBride was wounded in the forehead and was withdrawn for treatment. Following their success at Saddleburg, McBride's unit returned to Australia in February of 1944. After a short period of leave, it reformed in Queensland and began an extensive period of training on the Atherton tablelands. McBride and his comrades embarked again for active service in April 1945 and travelled to Morotai, which was being used as a staging area in preparation for the 7th and 9th Divisions' amphibious landings on Japanese-held Borneo as part of Operation Oboe. McBride's brigade was tasked with recapturing the island of Tarakan and taking its oil infrastructure and airfield. Landing on the 1st of May 1945, McBride and his comrades were the first to reach the shores of Tarakan. They encountered little opposition on the beaches, but came under heavy fire as they moved inland. Despite fierce and bloody fighting, Tarakan was successfully recaptured by the end of the month. But more than 220 Australian troops were killed during the operation. Among the dead was Private Joseph McBride, who was killed in action 3 days into the offensive on Tarakan. After the war, Private McBride was reburied at Labuan War Cemetery in Malaysia, where he lies today beneath the simple inscription chosen by his family. It reads, "His duty nobly done." Private Joseph McBride was 23 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Joseph McBride, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.